Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli waj'al li waziran min ahli Haruna akhi ushdud bihi azri washriku fi amri kay nusabbihaka kaseera wa nazkuraka kaseera innaka kunta bina basira. Rabbana hab lana min azwajina wa zurriyatina qurrata a'yunin waj'alna lil muttaqina imama. Rabbi awzini an ashkura wa ni'matika allati an'amta alayya wa ala walidayya wa an a'mala salihan tardahu wa adkhilni bi rahmatika fi ibadika salihin. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Welcome everyone. Inshallah, we'll continue to study the 17th word, the second station, on page 225 of the book, The Words. Last week we kind of finished up the praise poetry like Fruit of the Black Mulberry, and what I really gathered on how the author is emphasizing on the effulgence of belief, what that brings to one's life, how we can live with that understanding, living with belief, what is called belief in the recognition of our Lord, that we are not here on our own, we are being taken care of. This universe has a purpose. My being here has a purpose. It's not just I'm haphazardly sitting here. The universe is not working by itself, but there is a conscious will operating me and this universe all together. And of course, the difference in view of what the Western philosophy, the material philosophy brings to one's life is a drastic, like opposite perspective, where the death and the appointed hour is seen as dreadful in one view, versus with the light of belief or the understanding of belief, death becomes as a friend. And instead of being frightened, it becomes more welcoming. Same thing with the grave, which becomes a door of mercy, portal of truth. And one is really happy to the call of the resurrection. It's like an Eid day celebration, mighty gathering, great gathering, to be in the presence of the Lord, versus the other perspective of the bodily, maybe only perspective, like we are not going to be, what good is this life? We are going to die at the end. And like a depressing kind of perspective that just take advantage of what the life we have right now, because you won't get it. Although in the light of belief, it's like you'll get much better than the temporariness that you are experiencing in this world. So we'll move to the next section on a supplication which occurred to me in Persian. The supplication occurred to my heart in Persian and was therefore written in that language. It was first included in my published work, Hubab. Okay. O my sustainer, heedlessly, not trusting in you, but in my own power and will, I cast an eye over the 6 aspects. I cast an eye over the 6 aspects, searching for a cure for my ills. O my sustainer, heedlessly not trusting in you, but in my own power and will, I cast an eye over the 6 aspects, searching for a cure for my ills. Alas, I could find no cure for them, and I understood it was being said to me, are your ills not sufficient as cure for you? Interesting. Are your ills not sufficient as cure for you? Never thought of this question. That the ills, that I'm wondering about the ills, and now the ills themselves are, if the question comes in, are your ills not sufficient as a cure for you? Of course, the author is reflecting in a way on going in the same subject of one perspective versus one belief's perspective, and says heedlessly not trusting in you, which is what belief brings, but in the one's own power and will. All my sights, my front, back, side, left, my past, present, future, top, down, wherever I turn to, there is, and I'm looking for a cure, there is no cure to be found. Alas, I could find no cure for them, and I understood was being said to me, are your ills not sufficient as cure for you? In heedlessness, I looked to pastime on my right, to find solace. But I saw that yesterday appeared to be my father's grave, and pastime as the huge tomb of all my forebears. Yes, so in heedlessness, I looked to pastime on my right to find solace, looking to the past to find solace, but I saw that yesterday appeared to be my father's grave, and pastime as the huge tomb of all my forebears. It filled me with horror rather than consolation. Scary stuff. Filled me with horror rather than consolation in the eye of the view of heedlessness. This one way. And then his belief perspective in small characters here. Belief shows that horrific vast grave to be a familiar and enlightened meeting and a gathering of friends. Very stark contrast. One is horrific vast grave, and the other is a familiar and enlightened meeting and a gathering of friends. Brother Ali, go ahead, please.
Before reading and discussing on the following passages, paragraphs, I think we have to be aware of a very important point, which I believe it is historically essential in Islamic thinking. But I'm just asking you for your patience. It may take long for me to explain this quite essential problems in Islamic scholarship. But please pay attention, and please, if needed, take notes. and think about it, reflect on it. Although I have been thinking about it for a long time, I'm trying to present it as clear and as simple as possible. What happened historically in Islamic scholarship? First, the great scholars, serious people, started questioning what Islam is teaching us, what the Quran is talking about, what is the function of the prophethood, why do we need it? Lots of essential questions are dealt with. We definitely appreciate it. Of course, from the very preliminary stage, everybody will have some sort of immature, premature ideas about it and start sharing among the scholars, not ordinary people, general public, among the scholars themselves. Of course, we have to, at the same time, remember the communication means they have to write the book and exchange it. It takes a month to write a book, another month to exchange it from Kufa to that time, now Spain, so Andalusia. And then coming back, responding back, it takes another 2 months. During this time, people's thinking changes. We have to accept this. So they have to think deeply, question it, but no prior experience that they are inheriting from other cultures. Very primitive idea of this philosophy, the Greek philosophy, and Far Eastern philosophies are somehow known, but Greek philosophy was much better known among the Mesopotamian area, where Islam extended it very quickly. Afterwards, the Islam was introduced, the Muslims were introduced to Hinduism and Buddhism, or Shintoism, Taoism, all sorts of ideologies, the kind of philosophies, human-based philosophies, not divinely revealed. Of course, they were very familiar with Jewish tradition, Talmudic readings, the tafsir of Torah by the scholars, Jewish scholars. It was much more available for them. So what happened, they were reading how these people dealt with these problems of belief, human nature, the content of belief, belief in God, belief in the hereafter, and qadar, divine determining, and angels. They are all new to Arab culture. But of course, with the, if you like, joining the Iraq and nowadays Iraqi and Iranian cultures, they became aware of some sort of other ideologies dealt with these problems. So they were somehow not, I would not say that they were influenced by it, but at the same time, they were the people who were questioning, not the Bedouin Arabs. What is the origin of existence of this world? And how do we understand the concept of God? And what is the next life? How do we explain the existence of this world and the life? Of course, these all needed a serious study, which the Muslim scholars were ready to do that in order to understand the Quranic message, which seems to be very interesting. In general, it's very interesting. That's a new culture. Jewish tradition brought some sort of understanding, but they were mainly concentrated on fiqh, as we know in Islamic tradition, rules, regulations, in the great detail, not really with theological subjects. Jews learn theological subjects, talk about God, if you like, in quote unquote, nature of God and nature of existence, etc., from Muslim scholars. Because Muslim scholars combined the Quranic teaching with philosophy, Greek philosophy, Hellenistic culture. Meanwhile, the people were very much seriously concentrated on the grammar and Arabic language, rhetoric of eloquence of the Quran. They were another type of people. As the Muslim community was introduced to Far Eastern cultures, they became familiar with a kind of human sense-based, they call spiritualism, which is called tasawwuf. But not necessarily they were influenced, but at the same time, it was an interesting subject to pay attention to. Some of them learned, some of them really mixed up with Islamic teaching and Hindu tradition mainly, not much with Buddhism, all the sub-branches of Buddhist traditions. Mostly with Hindu, because Hindus believe in God in one form or another. Now, one side of the scholarship was very much involved in Hellenistic tradition. The other side was very much interested. I would definitely shun away from using influenced by it. But at the same time, in the area, they wanted to pay attention to and get interested in it. What do they say? Why do they say? How can we reconcile these ideas, Hellenistic tradition and also this Hindu tradition, if you like, from two sides? At the end, some people became very much reasoning-based understanding of creation. Another channel of thinking concentrated on human senses, which is known nowadays as spiritual side of human being, emotional side of human being. And the separation developed because of the concentration on the topic and became two almost contrary poles in Islamic tradition. Don't confuse with Shia tradition. Shia tradition is okay with Sunni tradition, but in political interpretations, everybody, Sunnis and Shiites, took extreme attitudes, and it became somehow a solid conflict between Muslim population. That is a completely different matter. So let's not confuse it here now. What happened? Sufi tradition concentrated on heart, spirit, which is called heart in the language of the Quran, or human senses, emotions. And on the other side, theologians, philosophers took another path, and commentators on the Quran took another path, and those people who are very careful about fiqh rulings, to establish the rulings, took on hadith part. So there are scholarship developed. Let's start from here, mostly using human rationality and working on the same direction with Hellenistic tradition. And the other one, the other opposite, extreme opposite, is rejecting rationality and concentrating on human spirituality, feelings. Another tradition took place on concentrating, understanding the Quran within itself. We have to be careful. Understand the Quran within itself, with its literal meaning, and also rhetorical significance of this, concentrating on the grammar and verbs of the words of the Quranic language. And therefore, balagha, which is called in Arabic, eloquence of the Quran. The other one took very much interested in hadith collecting and hadith studies in order to establish the foundations of fiqh sharia rulings. They were innocent people. Although they had some conflict between them, some conflict means diverse ideas between them, but they were, of course, quarreling between them, but they were great people because these are all included in the teachings of the Quran. Quran never neglects Sharia. Quran never neglects the importance of the mission of the prophethood. Quran again emphasizes on human feelings. Definitely, Quran emphasizes on human reasoning. All of them are within the, if you like, general umbrella of the teachings of the Quran. They were different disciplines. To a certain extent, they became somehow not harmonious with each other, and then started causing problems as Islam developed and education improved, developed in the Muslim country. Much more people were able to receive education. Learning institutions spread out every part of the world. So many people were now aware of what is going on in among the Muslim scholarship, and the students, young people, and the overhearing general public, which is called awam, ammah. It is general public, were puzzled about this apparent conflict or diverse ideas, not really getting together and trying to find out their own basis and uniting point, conversion points. They didn't know at all, and the scholars were not really looking for reconciliation between different traditions, saying that these are all needed, the parts of the same body of the teachings of the Quran. They were trying to emphasize the importance and acceptability, rationality, consistency of their ideas from reasoning, from Quranic and the Hadith tradition, supports or evidence taken from them. And this was going on at the beginning at a very hot level. So, of course, people were busy in order to make their understanding because they believed in it, not because they wanted to cause problems. They believed in that this is the right way, because when you concentrate something, you see that point only as the most significant point. It was right. I have no way to complain any of them and really ridicule any of them or reject any of them. Tafsir tradition was right. Hadith tradition was right in its own capacity. And fiqh, establishing the Sharia rules, were definitely right within its own capacity. Reasoning side of the philosophers were right. Sufi tradition were right, because, as we always say in these discussions, human beings are one unit. You cannot separate one part of human being from another, saying that eyes are more important than ears, or no, the nose are more important than, for example, skins, touchings. We cannot say that legs are more important than hands. No, they all work harmoniously with each other, as we should see now comfortably, because looking at the battlefield of wisdom scholarship from distance now, after 1,200 years later, you can easily say that, oh, there may be a reconciliation point, conversion point in their different ideology, understandings of the Quran. By the way, all of them use the Quran as their source of legitimation of their ideologies, because Quran accommodated all of them. But causing polarization was the problem. Of course, not being able to stop this polarization, some people took an attitude and rejected one side completely, condemned them to the extent almost kufr, denial, and the other was also rejecting and this accusation and trying to come up with a counter argument and reject their standing. So it became more and more, caused more and more tension in Muslim intelligentsia, if you like, thinking people, serious scholars, and almost towards the end of the 13th century, they lost their significance, because this rejection of everything became the fashion. So they didn't want to use their reasoning. They didn't want to accept Sufistic interpretations. They didn't want to really reduce Quran to fiqh rules only, Sharia rules only. And the general public said, okay, let us be free. We are Muslims and we are going to practice what Allah asked us to do. We don't want to reason. We don't want to question. We don't want to really go into the deep study of the Quran, etc. Arabic, this is just the Arabic language was used in order to understand the Sharia principles only in madrasa system. So they were just memorizing the previous scholars in fiqh matters, maybe correct in memorizing the fiqh rules established by the early Salafi scholars, founders of the madhahib. They were not, but they extended this memorization and imitation of the earlier scholars, extended it to other matters that were reasoning as well, rejected reasoning because it contradicted imitation, and also Sufi spiritual trend of understanding belief and Islamic teaching, Quranic teaching. Also, they had to listen to themselves, so it's a great deal for ordinary people. They just said, come on, that is what I am, and let me know what to do. So fiqh rules and moral principles took over, and this is the pioneering, the result of pioneering of Ihya Ulumuddin the other traditions almost faded away. But of course, they were historically reality. Those people who wanted to study seriously, they went and continued becoming interested in these different traditions. But of course, general public kept themselves away from all these serious studies. We have now don't misunderstand me, ignorant folk of Muslim community imitating history, imitating the common tradition in culture, and not being really a serious explorer, investigator of Islamic teaching in general, presented and initiated by the Salafi scholars, and Salaf scholars, not Salafi is a title, Salaf scholars, it means the early generation, serious generation. And of course, inevitably, imitation won over all of them. Here we are, look at Muslim community, that is the result of it. What? Mainly, fiqh rulers said, okay, what the Prophet did, we will do it. That's it. That was stuck there. What the Quran says, okay, Quran says go and obey the Prophet. I am obeying the Prophet. I'm done. Finish. That is what tafsir. That is what the fiqh. Therefore, hadith scholars concluded in very, very generalization. This is extremely generalization. But to make the case easily understandable, I am depicting this picture. Now, come to Quran's interpreters, Mufassirun. They said, okay, we have to interpret the Quran only by following the grammatic rules of the language structure of the Quran. They restricted themselves there. They didn't want to interpret what it means. They didn't want to really question how human feelings need and instruction from the Quran as satisfying all parts of human beings at the same time. Now the main two poles remained somehow influential in this Muslim community. One of them is Sufi tradition. The other one is reasoning, therefore aql and naqil, aql and qalb conflict. So, of course, at the end, volumes of books were written, and conflict between aql and naqil, apparent conflict to me, and that's my understanding, and also conflict between aql and qalb. Again, which one is really to be followed? Now, the time came, and some Indian, Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, and this kind of thing started the tradition in India. Scholarship studies, a very serious scholarship. They call it something Debandabani or something, or it is actually encouraged by the British colonialists. A kind of modernist tendency of interpretation of Islamic matters. But now I said, somebody wrote it for us. Okay, yeah, Deobandis. Yeah, it is great influential in the far eastern part of or subcontinent Muslim countries, but somehow affected. And then serious scholars, to me, took another initiation, which is Muhammad Abduh, led by Muhammad Abduh, and his follower Rashid Rida, and this is also this was a very influential revivalist movements. I wouldn't call them modernist movements, although the Sufis call it modernists and rationalists, somehow philosophers. But I would dare to call it impossible, they are revivalists. This initiation, again, how are we going to deal with this problem of reconciling between Sufi and rational? It means the reasoning-based, emotion-based understanding of the Quran. And also the very much, again, reasoning-based understanding of the Quran was very much interested in how are we going to defend the teachings of the Quran against the assaults of this newly emerging religious reforms in Western countries, which were really influencing the Muslim community at large, especially through colonialist movements, later on supported by Orientalist movements. Now, what we have to bear in mind that where Sufi tradition accused of reasoning as being the, how do you say it, or somebody cannot walk without the help of a stick or stuff.
Handicap?
No. Cannot walk only. Handicap is a general term. You cannot walk, you can walk with difficulties or something. Only walking problem. How are they called? Lame people, correct. Thank you.
Disabled or?
Sorry?
Disabled?
No, lame.
Lame, okay.
Yeah, it's a very famous term used by the Sufis to describe reasoning. It is lame. It needs the stick. What is the stick? They have to follow the Quran. But those people, it was not a legitimate claim anyways, to my understanding, because those people who follow reasoning claim that they are following the Quran. On the other hand, those people who follow Sufi tradition, spirit, and accuse this classical scholarship, especially the fiqh mad people, I would call them, reducing Islam to fiqh Sharia principles, which are directly related to practical side of human beings, not really the base of it. The base means reasoning and using human feelings. Why I need to talk this that long? Because we should pay attention while we are reading this text. What is going on? In Nursi's extremely important reconciliation between reasoning and human feelings. Not two different poles, but if you like, twin sisters of scholarship. They help each other, they complement each other. We must pay attention while we are reading this very important analysis that we started and we are going to read as inshallah for some times. And Nursi's general method is this. The reasoning speaks on evidence in existence. Now, it's the important summary of rationality. Reasoning through using evidence in existence, in creation, and concluding that there must be a source of existence which is beyond the nature of this universe, who must be the source of existence of this universe. That is the conclusion of the reason. So reasoning. So based on this, everything must be really talked about, as we see in the very famous rationalist movement in Islamic scholarship, Maturidiyya. So these people use the reasoning only, not really consulting feelings at all. And they said feelings, this accusation is important to notice actually. The feelings have no structural reasoning. It is liquid, it is airy, it lacks air, and also maybe carried away by a human soul, which is called nefis. Nefis means really self-oriented interpretation of one's life. Because you cannot trust whether your feelings can be really put into a how do you say, isthmus? What is this isthmus? There's the principle or unit of measurement. What is test isthmus? No. No. Somebody please. Yeah, say it. You write it. Write it. No, not measurable. Yeah, it is. They are all a litmus test or litmus something. It means no criterion that you can take. Emotions fluid. Everybody has different emotions and goes beyond any limitations at all, as Suhail said. You cannot really measure it in this way or another way. And it is very emphasis. It means it is very self-experiential with no evidence. But I am experiencing it. That is true. That is very much true. So it doesn't have litmus whatever paper or test, whatever it is called. It means criteria. And the rationalists were rejecting Sufi tradition mainly because of this reason. How can I trust it? I cannot really formulate it. I cannot really put a frame around it. Everybody is different, and also it may be influenced by human ego. It means nefis, nefsul emmara. All right, to a certain extent, yes, correct. But at the same time, I would say, yeah, this criticism is legitimate with one condition, which I'll tell at the end. What is the condition and solution for it? Now, on the other hand, Sufi tradition said rationality only concludes that this universe has a creator, and but in the creation, there is some unacceptable things are going on against human feelings, and reason cannot answer that. For example, we love our life, our youth, and we love the beauty of this world, but at the end, the creator of this world slaughters me, if you like, kills me. How can I make sense of it? Reason? No. Reason cannot answer this. Emotionally, we should just involve in it so that we are right. Both of them were reasoning cannot really go beyond the limitations of the universe, beyond the capacity of the universe, but only rational conclusion. When you reason, you have to use your rational conclusion only. Whereas Sufi tradition says, look, I am not limited. I don't like to limit myself with the rational conclusion only. I need my sensual, they call it spiritual satisfaction. Spiritual satisfaction needs concentration on God and seeing the world in the best way. Now Nursi comes into the scene. And among the revivalist movement, actually, I would categorize Nursi among the revivalist movement, but this revivalist movement took different colors here and there. I'm trying to remember the name, very famous name, but when I think it doesn't come to me, to my mind. Oh. Okay, if it comes, I'll tell you. So rather than reconciling modernized understanding of the Quran, this kind of people, but of course, anyways, now these people on one side and on the other side, other people, up to also what I was trying to remember the name of their tafsir. Every day I use this language, now it doesn't come, this word. Well, Allahu Akbar. Okay. Up to him, Rashid Rida was writing monthly journals, and then at the end they compiled the tafsir of, okay, interesting. But they were mixing with scientific discoveries, and trying to understand to a certain extent. Not only this, they were great scholars and also classical scholars. They were classical scholars, but they need to revival the Quran and try to answer the problems raised by European philosophers or modernist, reformist people, reformist in European tradition, not among Muslims. The reform of religion, if you like, with the scientists rejecting the literal understanding of Torah, creation of the world. So they were rejecting it. Anyways, that they wanted to answer them. They had an excellent, good intention, but to keep the balance, I personally find it in Nursi's revivalist writings, concentrating on what is needed now. That is what revivalist movements were concentrating. That's all right. Concentrating on the Quran, which needs interpretations according to the requirements of the time now, and providing the answers to the Western philosophy introduced to the world. And at the same time, leaving aside the argumentations on hadith narrations and fiqh problems, because they are almost settled down and the people are happy with them only after believing the Quranic teaching and accepting the Islamic teaching and the foundations of belief, not consciously though, not questioning why, but accepting it for a good faith. That, well, the world looks like it has a creator, and Islam is teaching this, and Quran seems to present the perfect or most understandable, acceptable form of definition of God. So it must be, Islam must be true, so that if the Quran says there will be an hereafter, I accept it. There are angels, why not? I don't know, but there must be, I accept it. Whatever the Quran says is right, because it is fundamental teaching is acceptable. And the universe also is a quite clear witness to this claim of the Quran. This is just really accepting it, not necessarily imitating, but majority of the people imitating the culture and claiming that they accept it. But most of them don't know what they are accepting, really. they claim that the Quran is God's word, but they never studied. They don't know the content of the Quran, not even read it once in their life. Majority of the population of the Muslim world. So horrible position, but this is our reality. So Nursi comes says, Nursi, I don't want to concentrate on chat box. Let me complete this picture. I'm not saying don't write it, but I'm not going to read and I'm not going to respond back on the spot. No. So I will ignore it. So let me complete the picture. What Nursi did, emotions requires eternal satisfaction. How? Not by imitation, Nursi says. Imitating that Quran says there will be a life after death. Quran says there will be paradise, there will be hell. Quran says this. I believe in it. There must be. So my eternal expectations, eternal satisfaction expectations will be fulfilled in the hereafter. Postpone it and wait. After you die, you will receive it. Emotions are satisfied with a kind of wishful expectations. So it is. How do you know that there will be a Quran says so? I believe in the Quran. And Nursi says, no, there must be a rational explanation of it. We will see here in this text, if we are very careful, how Nursi combines two of them. Why? If you find the creator of the problem, where is it? Go up, please, a little bit, awesome. So, and yeah, no, go down, yeah. No, where is it? Where is this expression? Are your ills not sufficient as cure for you? Now, look at the ills, problems, so-called quote-unquote disasters. These are the source of it. How can you look at it? With your reasoning. In order to satisfy your feelings that there must be understandable and confirmable, if their feelings follow reasoning to understand they are created by a one who is beyond the limitations and nature of this universe. And just attribute, refer your feelings as created by this absolute being. He will take care of it. His qualities must be absolute. So your expectations, your desire for satisfaction, that there must be a life where I am going to enjoy myself definitely. In the hereafter, no, while I am here. That is the revolution Nursi introduces to us. While I am here. How? Look at the source of existence of the ills. You will find it. And this is an answer to the need of emotions. You see the combination and really merging how feelings and reasoning combine together and working together. Where reasoning doesn't operate there like I see it, but ear needed to hear the voice as well to make sense of it. I see that somebody is speaking. Without the ear, I don't understand what he's saying. Now, without the eye, I hear a voice, I don't know where is it coming from. Both of them work together. That is why Nursi's main methodology in his revivalist writings is that combined all sides of human beings, all qualities of human beings, working together in not only compatible with each other, but complementary with each other, complementing with each other. Now, we will see that if you think of find out the existential explanation of the ills, which is the subject of reasoning. Who can be the creator of my feeling which doesn't like ills? Who can be the creator of the disasters, I call them a hurricane or whatever? Who can be? That is the subject of reasoning. Now, emotion says, I don't want any of them. Yes. If you realize and listen to me, reason says, if you really listen to me, you will understand the source of existence of this matter, but you have to use your reason. He is the absolute being. The absolute being is calling you to acknowledge him. Now, and then feelings come into the field and start making sense now, and utilizing the reasoning. And reasoning also says, there is a creator, so what shall I do with it? Emotional side, spiritual side of human beings comes, says, I want eternal happiness right now. Which kind of creator he is, so that he creates something which I don't like. So they need each other. They need each other. What the Quran is teaching, the combination of emotions and reasoning together, and calling people to use their emotions and at the same time reasoning, it needs a close reading of the Quran. You don't have to be a very crazy scholar of the Quran, an Arabic expert or Arabic language of the Quran, grammatic side of the Quran. General but close and careful reading of the Quran will reveal that Quran is combining two of them, two sides at the same time, including the Sharia. So Sharia starts making sense when you understand that my feelings have no limitations, whereas Sharia puts the limitations. Now, reasoning cannot really solve human emotional problems, as Nursi was complaining here, but emotions will introduce the problem, reasoning will provide the answer for it. They support each other, and hands and legs and body, muscles and nervous system all together will work, and the man will be healthy and living healthy in a healthy way, because none of them is neglected. That's why we have to pay attention not to criticize any of these traditions, but benefit from them, combine from them. That is what I learned from Nursi's teaching. I hear sometimes people say, reason is to a certain point, they don't understand. This is not rationalism, rationalizing the word, and you don't know what faith is, but reducing it to rational conclusions, which has no effect in my life. This criticism is just a sign of ignorance of the reality of human beings, just following the culture which is inherited from Ghazalian philosophy, understanding. But I mean, this is a very simplistic way of understanding Islam, and at the same time, Sufi, these people just talk about how great their shuyukh is. Simple, yes, that is ordinary people, awam, talk in this way, but it doesn't mean that Sufi tradition is not really worth paying attention and learning from. We have to benefit from them, but pay attention to the polarization in history. Don't be carried away by it. This is the solution for Shia Sunni contradictions and conflict. Shia is very extreme in political interpretation of the word. Sunnis are not less than this, interpreting that obeying the sultans, al-sultanu dhillullah al-ard, made up this kind of stories, wrote in the masjid, etc., legitimizing the kingdom in Islam. It is ridiculous, against defense of imamat tradition among Shiites. Both of them played their role according to their own position, and the cliff between Shia and Sunni now almost impossible to reconcile. But Nursi took the attitude, how can I reconcile Shia, good side of Shia tradition with good side of Sunni tradition? He rejected Sultanate, definitely. He rejected Sultanate, definitely, so legitimized the criticism of Shiites. But at the same time, he rejected only Sunni tradition, fiqh understanding, but why not benefit from Imam Ali's teachings, which are mostly widely spread among Shiites, but also turn blind among Sunnis. So he introduced Jawshan from, and also Tasbihat from Shia tradition, without mentioning this is Shia tradition. This is the best side. Jawshan really is amazing. So why not to benefit from it to Sunni people? And then without realizing the gap between them is getting closer, and empathy starts happening between two sides. My only concern is this: unfortunately, Sunni tradition monopolized Risale-i Nur and not really introduced Risale-i Nur to Shia people. Shia scholars are not aware of Nursi. It will be very, if it was, it would be very influential actually among the sincere, not politically oriented Shia people. But we have to pay attention, especially in Turkey. Risale-i Nur is rejected by political oriented Islamists. That is fact, because Nursi is not really bringing Islam or the Islamic tradition into political dirty stratagems of some egoistic people. It kept the Quranic teaching Islam away from their area, their arena, their field. Of course, it needs to be done in Shiite tradition as well. If they want to benefit from the Risale-i Nur, the Iraqi and especially Iraqi and Iranian, and to a certain extent in some parts of subcontinent of Asia, there are quite a number of Shiites in Pakistan, and mostly in Pakistan actually, not much in Afghanistan and Bangladesh, Indonesia, but mostly in Pakistan. There are a good number of Shia people there. Anyways, now definitely the politically oriented Shia scholars will oppose Risale-i Nur, because Risale-i Nur doesn't justify their political interpretations of Imam Ali and imamates, but at the same time Risale-i Nur strongly defends imamate tradition. It means the great and great and great grandson of the tradition. It is a long story. Not only one person. They are educated. They have a great knowledge of Islam. to me, much deeper than Sunni tradition, because Sunni tradition restricted themselves with only fiqh matters, generally speaking, and also literal studying the Quran. But Sunni tradition is more thinking, analytic reading there. They should benefit from each other. Unfortunately, so radicalization caused the polarization, and everybody is totally ignorant of what is going on the other side. That is the picture of the Muslim world now, to my understanding. So although Shia and Sunni conflict is not related to our subject here on the 17th word that we are reading, but at the same time, the conflicts maybe, or not maybe, can easily be solved if we don't have prejudice, especially prejudice caused by cultural influence of the background, our ancestral narrations. Well, unfortunately, of course, ignorance is not the solution at all. Open-mindedness is absolutely necessary. Listen to other side is absolutely necessary. If we want to understand this section, the time is really up, and even 8 minutes after the deadline, we have to bear in mind and try to see how Nursi combines rationality with emotions and really merges them, welds them with each other. How do you say it? Mixes them with each other and helps to solve the problem together with the help of emotions and reasons, and complementing each other perfectly. The last sentence I will say and stop, if there is no question or concern or thought on the subject. Nursi says, Iman happens after being digested in the mind and sent down to the heart. It means, it is then, of course, analogy. We eat something in the stomach, it is digested, and then sent to the, how do you call the system? Oh, come on, somebody may help me. After the stomach digests, send this to where, and then distribute to intestine. Thank you, Suhail. Intestines. This analogy is taken because if the food is not digested in the stomach, this is an excellent summary of Nursi's attitude. If the food is not digested in the stomach, intestines cannot get the vitamins, proteins, whatever is used, and distributed to the cells of the body. That's reality. And if there was no intestine, only the stomach digests the food, but there is no distribution. What is it good for? So Nursi takes this very real biological fact of human reality and uses it for Iman, how the Iman should be understood. First, in the very word he uses, he says, in the stomach of the mind, Iman must be, Iman matters must be digested. It means reasoning must be satisfied. And then to be sent to heart in order to distribute to human feelings. Each feeling has many problems, many concerns, but only getting this digested food by the mind, reasoning, they can solve their problems, and they can have the limitations or isthmus criteria where to put the limitations, how to direct them, and see whether I am carried away by my egoistic interpretations or realistic, according to human reality, understanding of Iman matters. So the reasoning is not enough, must be sent to human feelings. Human feelings without reasoning cannot really be satisfied. Only they have to say, we have to believe in it. It means complete imitation. The Quran says, don't imitate, confirm it, yaqeen, certainty is necessary. So really we see the teachings of the Quran combines all of them, and also really not only reconciliation, but also complementing each other and making a perfect, full picture of human functioning, how belief matters and practices of Islam should be combined together and made on a sound base, and human beings will be fully satisfied, inshallah. So we will read the text, inshallah, bearing in mind this reconciliation and also complementation. Inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Sorry, I know it would take an hour, and it did. So, but it is essential to read Nursi and understand what Nursi brought as a revivalist and revolution in thinking, Islamic tradition. It is a very important milestone in Islamic tradition of thinking or scholarship. To me, to my, limited understanding, if you like. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alhamdulillah, thank you for preparing us for this, inshallah. So if anybody has any comment, you can make it now, so we can continue on. Next time, inshallah, try to see how reasoning based with the evidence and feelings and the whole human self can combine to make sense of the message of our existence here. It's a very beneficial way for me to benefit from the message of the Quran, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim wa akhiru da'wahum alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bi hurmati suratul Fatiha.